All right, welcome to Ducks and Pucks. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Jones. We've got some big news to go over today as the Ducks made a trade, sending DSP to Montreal, and we're going to talk about that. Also, Tim Jackman got re-signed. We're going to talk about Corey Perry and Getzlaf being split up. And as usual, we'll go over our game recaps and game previews coming up this week. To start off, Eddie, the big news, DSP sent to Montreal.
Yeah, and that was kind of surprising. I don't think a lot of people thought that he was going to be the guy traded. I think we were discussing it and we thought Edom, if anybody, was going to be traded, or somebody, some of the prospects or a pick or something. And then this morning, minding my own business, and all of a sudden on Twitter, I get a text, and then I see Twitter start blowing up that Sekac is coming over to Anaheim for Smith-Pelly. It was definitely surprising, but you look at the trade and it fills a need for the Ducks. Creative left winger, and everybody loved Devo here, and he did a good job. And obviously we remember his goal against Dallas in the playoffs, but it's going to be a fresh start for both of them, and I think look at the trade right now. It's a fair deal for both teams.
Yeah, Eddie. I mean, we look at the stats and whatnot on here, and we look at how DSP had been doing this season. He had 5 goals and 12 assists. Sekac had 7 goals and 9 assists. So they're right there, 17 and 16 in points. Similar ice time as well for both. Right around 14 minutes for each. And similar situations as well. They both kind of had played on top lines early in the season for both teams, and then have kind of been bumped to the third and fourth lines. I'm happy with this trade. It's a pretty even trade, and it fills a need we had talked about. We said left winger and D-man, and we got one of the two done with almost a week to go for the trade deadline, Eddie.
Yeah, and when you look at it, it's a little bit. You see a lot of the reaction on Twitter, and a lot of people obviously might not know who Sekac is and haven't really seen his play or anything. And Devo is a fan favorite, but when you look at Sekac's play at the beginning of the season, he made the All-Star game, had a great start with Montreal, and everything was looking out for him. And you got to remember too, this is his first season in the NHL after coming over from playing in the Czech Republic. So it's kind of hard to judge his play. He's obviously got a lot of a learning curve with the NHL ice compared to the European ice, and I think. This deal in the long run is going to work out better for Anaheim, and you never know. Devo could go to Montreal and tear it up and become a top 6 forward. But I think if you look at them and you compare realistically the ceiling for both of them, I think Sekac has definitely a higher ceiling and potential for the future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Eddie. And we put a poll question up there too once we released the breaking news. Luckily, it was early this morning. Right when I got to work, so I was able to get it done and get a question out there. And the results were kind of interesting. We had almost 40%, in regard to the trade, saying that it was yet to be determined whether or not they thought the trade was good. And then right behind that, 34%, the fans don't like the trade. But like I think you said, a lot of that's the initial reaction. I think if people read into the stats and look into what the other players have been saying on Montreal and the fans, they're actually pretty upset. They think that they got a raw deal. I think it's pretty even, like you talked about, with a slight edge going to the Ducks. I think some of it is still going to be determined going forward here, but I don't think Duck fans should be too upset. This is a left wing position that we needed to fill, and we got it done for a fair deal.
Yeah, and I think it all comes down to they're the same age, relatively the same size. Obviously, Devo's a little bit more of a physical presence, and Sekac is more creative, and that's a little bit of a difference. I think it all comes down to is Devo's had his chances. Arguably we haven't put him and slot him on the first line, and it's kind of hard to give him top 6 minutes on the right wing with the emergence of Silfverberg and Perry and Ewan Ryan used to be playing second line right wing. So it's kind of hard to judge what Devo can do, but Sekac will have more chances, and that it kind of moves into the fact is where is he really going to play, and obviously right now Bolesky out, it makes it a little bit easier. But do you see Boudreaux slotting him on the first line with Getzlaf and Perry? I know at least for 1 or 2 games, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest question right now, Eddie. As we go into the game recaps, we'll talk about that. Going from last night's game in Anaheim against Detroit, and then Edmonton and Calgary. Perry and Getzlaf have started the game, been separated for a majority of all those 3 games, except the tail end of last night's game. But I think that's the key. Bolesky being out for another few weeks. I think you take Sekac, you throw him on the first line, and you put Perry and Getzlaf together and see what those 3 can do. I think it's a good idea. And if they don't try that, then I think you put Sekac on the second line, and then you either go with Perry and Kessler or some other combination, depending on it. Really depends, Eddie, on what Boudreaux is going to do with the Twins.
Yeah, and I really think they're happy with that third line and fourth line, Jackman and Thompson, and hold the Revolt Mador on left wing up and down the lineup, and Cogliano, Palmieri, and Raquel in the bottom 6. And I think they really brought in Sekac to test his top 6 potential, and putting him on a line maybe with if Getzlaf and Perry get put back together with them, or and maybe move Maroon up with them. We've seen Maroon's played with Getzlaf and Perry, and maybe put Sekac with Kessler and Silfverberg. It's definitely, there's a lot of options for them to explore, and I'm sure Boudreaux, how much he likes to roll the lineups. We'll see Sekac on a number of lines, but I think in the end they're hoping that he's going to be a top 6 forward. And but when you look at it now, and we needed a left wing, but it also, you look at Bolesky at the end of the season, and he's having a great season, but he's a UFA on the left wing. Some people have been saying, bringing in Sekac is open the door for Bolesky to leave, and possibly dangling him in front of a couple teams for a top 4 D-man, and that definitely could potentially happen now.
Yeah, I think that is the direction, obviously, for Murray to go in the next 5-6 days here before the trade deadline, is to go for that top D man. And I would hate to see Bolesky get traded, honestly. I mean, he's one of my favorites. But you're right, that could be something that comes up, some kind of a package deal. I don't know. You may say Edom or a prospect or something like that. I don't know. It's going to be interesting times in the next week, Eddie.
Yeah, and it all depends on if Murray believes Bolesky will be able to continue doing this throughout his career. They'll be working out contracts. Obviously, there's other guys who got to get signed that are not to understate Bolesky's importance to the team, but there's a lot of other more important guys who we have to get signed, and core guys to the team. And if Bolesky's asking for too much money, I think moving him now, his value will be higher than it ever has been. And there's a lot of teams out there looking for scoring wingers, and moving Bolesky and maybe picking up that top 4 D-man might be exactly what we need.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it really hinges on Bolesky, how much he's going to want next year. And then also, like you said, Murray's belief of how well he's going to do. And, you talk about re-signing core players too. The other news is that Tim Jackman got re-signed for a year, which helps out with our bottom 6. As we talked about, where the Ducks are pretty solid with who they've got there. And, I'm really happy about this signing of Jackman again, Eddie. If I could have 10 Tim Jackmans, I would put him out there on the ice. Obviously I need some centers, but he's just got the heart. He plays hard. He's not going to score often. He'll get on there a few times, but I think the biggest thing that we can all agree on is he hustles 100% or 110%, every shift on the ice.
Yeah, and he's really the prototypical fourth liner that you're looking for. He's not going to score goals, and when he does it, it's helpful, and it adds to the secondary scoring. I mean, he's gonna stick up for the team. He's gonna throw a couple checks. I mean, he's not gonna do anything fancy, but he's gonna be that gritty guy, and you always need those types of guys, especially on the fourth line and even up throughout the lineup. Obviously, our 2 best players are gritty players as well, and Getzlaf and Perry, but you gotta have that all the way through the lineup, and I think it's only a 1-year deal, but I think it's fair, and it's definitely welcomed by most of the fans.
Yeah, and looking at the way he's played, I mean, we can look at the last couple of weeks of games as we talked about, and the Ducks have really struggled going back to the Tampa Bay game, the Ducks came out in that one ahead, 1-0 in the first period on Maroon's goal, and then we had a terrible second period and got down 4-1 and never recovered. And it seemed like at that point that the Ducks really were trying to figure out what to do. We had just struggled and got knocked out of first place in the Western Conference, and just trying to get things righted after that. I mean, obviously we'll talk about the next couple games, and they did, but what do you think was the major problem with the Ducks? I mean, obviously we got people like Jackman that they're playing their heart out, but a bad period really did us in this one.
Yeah, and we've seen that a lot. The second period where we were outshot about 20-5, and we saw that in the Nashville game that we ended up winning, but in the third period we were outshot, I believe, 24-2 or 3. So it's just having these poor periods and not being able to play. If not like a complete 60 minutes, just you can't have a period like that where you completely fall asleep and expect to win the game. Obviously that Nashville game was an exception, but they started off well and they had the lead, and then that second period, and we've seen that a lot this season where their play has just completely fallen off, and somehow they've come out of the dressing room with just no momentum and no want to keep adding to the lead or just keep the lead. And when they're down 2-1, it wasn't such a big deal, and they were about to close off the period only down by 1, and that might have been a little bit of a chance to get back in, but then the two late goals by Tampa Bay kind of put it to bed, and even a strong third period from the Ducks would have taken a lot to get back into the game.
Yeah, and we talked about that, and Bruce's response the next day at practice was when he decided to go ahead with this splitting of Perry and Getzlaf. He kept Getzlaf on the first line, put Perry on the second line with Kessler, and we went into the next game with Calgary. And we started out poorly in that game. We gave up a goal in the first period and a goal early in the second. And it looked like here we went again, Eddie. We were down 2-0, in the first 31 minutes of the game. And Cogliano turns on the afterburners, gets a goal late in the second to get the Ducks back in it. And then finally we see a little bit of the early season Ducks here as they came out and blew away Calgary in the third period, getting 5 goals. And we ended up finally turning something around and winning 6-3.
Yeah, and Cogliano's goal kind of woke them up after a sleepy effort in the first half of the game, and then the Ducks really flipped the script on Calgary. Calgary being one of the best, if not the best, third period team in the season so far, having the highest goal differential in the third period. And the Ducks, when you can put 5 goals past anybody in a period, it's amazing. But putting it past the best third period team in the league is definitely it's definitely a feat. So, but yeah, it was definitely a bounce back win, another comeback, and we've seen that a lot. At least it wasn't a 1-goal win, so that's something we can be thankful for. But yeah, Boschman getting on the score sheet, Getzlaf and Perry split up and getting some points, and just getting some secondary scoring from up and down the lineup from Silfverberg and Palmieri, Cogliano. I think all in all it was a good win. Gibson had a pretty strong game, so they're hoping to look to continue the momentum into the next game against Edmonton.
Yeah, I mean, we tied a club record with the 5 goals in that third, and the Ducks carried it in to Edmonton in the back-to-back situation in which, we talked about this too in the back-to-back, and we didn't know if Bryzgalov would go in one of these games or Gibson would go in both, and Bruce showed no confidence in Bryzgalov at all. He went with Gibson again, and it ended up, the Ducks prevailed in this one. We scored early. Francois again, getting another goal, and Getzlaf getting the game winner late in the third. And, the Ducks, it looks like they're going to roll with Gibson until Freddie comes back, Eddie.
Yeah, and he had a solid game that game too. It was another game where the Ducks weren't, impressive, getting outshot by the Oilers. You only get 21 shots in the game, but a gritty effort. And like you said, we got to get the ugly goals. We've said that in the last few podcasts, and Getzlaf's game winner goes in off the foot of Justin Schultz, and you got to get those goals if you want to win hockey games. And getting a 2-game win streak after a pretty bad start to the month is definitely important for the Ducks. And Boschman getting on the score sheet again, and he's filling the net the last few games, making up for Vodnin's absence. Not something we're used to seeing him do, but it's always nice to see one of those defensive defensemen get on the score sheet a couple times, and if he can get 10 at the end of the season, I think that'll be a great year for him.
And you mentioned Beauchemin too. He achieved a milestone in this game, getting the goals that he's been getting. As far as total points, he's now second on the Ducks all-time defenseman list with 171 points. He's only behind Scott Niedermayer now, which may be a little bit more difficult to achieve. Scotty Niedermayer's at 264 points, so it's a little bit out there for Francois to get to. But nonetheless, it's a good achievement to see him get second on that list, and as we'll talk about, he rolls again in Detroit, as we'll talk about that game in just a minute, Eddie.
Yeah, I think it would be a little bit of a far stretch to say that he would end up catching Niedermayer in the long run. I think it would be great for him to pass 200 if he can. You'll be looking at probably in the next 10 years or so, guys like Lindholm and Fallon, Vanden, if they stay at the club, they'll be the guys who you'll be looking at to pass Niedermayer on the points list. But it's definitely a good milestone for Boschman to get up into second in points. It's not something that we look for from him, but it's always nice to see him get on the score sheet.
Yeah, and also in this game we had the Iron Man Cogliano playing his 600th straight game. He's played every single game in his career, and he's now 8th all time on the NHL Ironman list, and he is the current active leader for the streak right now in the NHL, Eddie.
It's just amazing to see a guy of his size and the way he plays. He's such a scrappy player. He gets in the face of other players. He finishes his checks, and he's not a big guy, like I said. So it's amazing to see a guy like him, and the way he plays, go through his whole career without getting injured. It's something that I hope he can continue for the rest of his career. Obviously, we don't want to see him go down. He's such an important player to the Ducks, and the secondary scoring, and making those top three lines for the Ducks just tick. So it's definitely a great milestone for Cogliano, and we hope to see him play another 600 games if he can make it to that.
Yeah, exactly. And, another milestone, this was just a game of milestone after milestone, but Perry played in his 700th game as a career Duck, moving him second on the all-time list. He's also got Getzlaf behind him at 690, so we'll be talking about him soon. And, of course, Teemu Selanne, number one, with 966 games, Eddie. But, Perry and Getzlaf, they might catch him, in a couple seasons.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time, really. They've got 8-year contracts. They're going to be here for a long time, and 200 games and three or four seasons down the road, we'll see both of them pass it, and I'm sure we'll see both of them break many more milestones for the Ducks. It'll be hard to see them not pass almost everybody by the time their careers are over.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it's probably going to look. And, we got to see Teemu last night when I was at the Detroit Red Wings Ducks game. He was in the suite, and they showed him in the third period, which, in this game, man, the first two periods, the Ducks played awful. I mean, that's the only way I can really put it. They had 10 shots on goal in the first two periods. First period wasn't as bad as the second. The second period, they only had 3 total shots. They were down, 2-0, basically because Datsyuk was skating circles around them. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's the way it looked. You'd think with Zetterberg out that the Ducks would have had a better chance, but Datsyuk filled in the role. And then third period, they show Teemu on the jumbo screen, and then all hell breaks loose, and the Ducks score 3 goals in just under 3 minutes, Eddie, en route to the shootout win.
Yeah, we talked about it in the Tampa game, and earlier where the Ducks kind of just fall asleep for a period, and they don't really show up, and it comes back to bite them. And, luckily they're able to get the win in this game, but that second period, that's not acceptable when you're trying to beat a team as good as Detroit and how good they've been this season, and only getting 10 shots through 2 periods where Detroit was able to put up 11, in all 3 periods. So the Ducks didn't really wake up until the third period, and we're obviously lucky they did. And Cogliano again sparking the team and getting them going, and Then Edom gets a goal on an assist from Stoner, and a little bit more than a minute later, Boschman's able to pot his third in 3 games, and it's all looking good. And near the end of the period, all they had to do was hold on. But you look at that play too on the Riley Sheahan goal for Detroit, and what we've been talking about with Stoner and Brewer, and another kind of lackluster effort from, I believe, Brewer. Who wasn't really picking up the tailing man in Sheahan, and he ends up scoring the tying goal. But then Silfverberg, obviously our shootout hero, gets the winner and gets in the shootout and gets Gibson and the Ducks to win, and continues the streak into 3 games. And we got Ottawa and LA coming up. Hopefully the streak can continue from there.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Ottawa's coming to town on Wednesday. They're not in the playoffs right now, and they're not doing as well. And we've mentioned this too. No game's a gimme, but this is one that the Ducks, I think, should win. It's going to be a little bit interesting with the trade now because Sekac has got to deal with some visa issues. So I don't think he's going to be available for Wednesday night's game. So it'll be interesting to see how the lines shape up for this game. But it's still a game that the Ducks should prevail, Eddie.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see if Sekac will be able to play. It's doubtful, like you said, because of the visa issues, and the travel's not really a problem. It's just the work visa. So if he's able to play, that'll be nice. But yeah, this is definitely a game the Ducks should be winning. Ottawa's pretty much outside the playoff picture. They're not eliminated mathematically, but it would take a big effort from them and a big collapse from a lot of teams in front of them to make the playoffs. But they're still a good team nonetheless. They've got 2 of their goalies out right now, but I believe Anderson and Lehner are both out for them. So they had a younger guy come up from the minors, and Andrew Hammond, who's actually won his first 2 starts and he's played extremely well in both of those games. So nobody's had a real, good look at this guy. So it's going to be hard to see what kind of game he's going to have. And I think the Ducks just need to jump on him early and maybe get one past him or get a lot of shots on him and get his confidence down, because right now his confidence is probably at an all-time high.
Yeah, I agree, Eddie. I think getting some goals early in this one is going to be key for the Ducks to, we talk about them coming from behind and winning all these, games. I mean, that last game in Detroit winning, they're now 26-0-7 in 1-goal games. And they did really well in this last year, too, coming from behind and winning. But you got to put a team away early, and they got to put away Ottawa early in this contest. And they can't rely on all this, coming back from behind. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was super excited at the game last night, and as all the other games I've gone to when we come back and win. But, in a 7-game series, when now it looks like, we may be playing the Kings or we may be playing the Sharks, with the way everything's been going up and down, it's going to be real interesting come April or May, especially with the Kings coming on Friday. Is going to be a huge measuring stick. If you haven't been paying attention to the Kings, they've won 7 in a row, and now they could possibly even end up second or third in our division, Eddie, going into playoffs.
Yeah, and it's not always about getting the lead in the game, and obviously you want to score first and you want to be able to put up a lot of goals on teams, and that's not always going to happen. And obviously for the Ducks this season, it hasn't happened at all, really. We've seen most of the games go to 1-goal games, and the Ducks have come out on top 90% of the time. And but I think the main thing is they just got to play full 60 minutes and not fall asleep. At least if you're not going to play full 60 minutes, don't fall asleep completely for a whole period. And we've seen that a lot for them. And if you keep doing that in a 7-game series, you're either not going to win it, or you're going to have to go 6-7 games in a series you should be winning and end up tying yourself out for the next series to come.
Yeah, and I think that's the big question. I mean, like you said, I'm glad that we win the 1-goal games, but I don't want to get too much in a hole in some situations because, we did that against Dallas, and we came back in that dramatic Game 6 to eliminate them, and then we had some of those moments against the Kings and ended up not prevailing in the 7-game series. And I think for us going forward, we talked about this too, Eddie, is if you get up on somebody and you get 3 wins, you got to get that 4th win in the next game. And that's what killed us against Detroit 2 years ago, and that's what killed us against the Kings last year. So I think that killer instinct too is kind of lacking. And we can't fall asleep completely for a period, but once we do get to those closeout situations, that's when we've got to really take it to the other team and knock them out.
Yeah, we've obviously got the Kings coming up after Ottawa, and by the time they reach us, they might have they've got also have to play Detroit tonight, and I believe Ottawa on Thursday, and then us on Friday. So by the time they play us, they might have already won 9 games in a row. Obviously, if you haven't been paying attention to them, they've won 7 games in a row so far, and it's going to be a tough game. Even if they do lose these next 2 games and the streak's over, they're going to be looking to beat us and. Well, we would like to be able to clinch the season series with a win, but it's going to be the toughest game of a stretch that we've had in a while. Obviously, you can't say Calgary and Edmonton and Detroit and the Ottawa game coming up are tough games, but anytime you play LA, it's going to be tough, and you play them in Honda Center, you play them in the Staples Center. It doesn't really matter. It's going to be a tough game, and the Ducks are going to have to come out and play a full game and pull out the win, and might be a preview of the second round of the playoffs as well.
Yeah, and you know what else is going to be interesting too? We didn't mention earlier in the show is the goalie movement with the Ducks. Bryzgalov got sent down on waivers to Norfolk, and he's out basically as we assume he's out at least playing for the Ducks unless something else crazy happens in the next few weeks here. But LaBarbera was recalled and backed up Gibson last night in Detroit. I don't know if Freddie's going to be ready. I haven't heard anything yet about Wednesday or Friday, but it'd be nice to get Freddie back, and then Boudreau's going to have to figure out what he wants to do. Either go with Gibson or go with Anderson. He might bring Anderson back and play against Ottawa or the Kings. I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but with Gibson and Freddie both playing well, it's definitely a welcome sight for the Ducks.
Yeah, and it depends. It all depends, like you said, when Freddie comes back. If he's ready tomorrow, and then put him in for the game against Ottawa, or maybe put Gibson in and give Freddie a couple more days off so he can get the start against LA. But if he's back in time, I could see them splitting it, but I could also see Gibson playing both just to give Freddie some more time off. But what we've seen from Gibson so far, if he's to start this LA game, it's definitely going to be his biggest test of the season. And obviously we'd like to see Freddie come back with LaBarbera being recalled. But Bryzgalov going down, it's been a goalie mess so far with all the injuries and recalls and sending guys down through waivers. It'd be nice just to get Freddie and Gibson just 1-2 for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think that's the key, Eddie. I think we got the left wing that we needed. Whether Sekac plays on the first or second line, it will be determined. It could be Pat Maroon on the first line and Sekac on the second line, maybe until Valesky, comes back or doesn't hopefully get moved. But I'm still going to hold firm that we need to get a shutdown, stay-at-home defenseman going forward if we really want to push all the way this year, which I still think that there is a move with Murray coming, and I think it will happen in the next week. Like we said, he re-signed Jackman, made this trade today. I still think there's something out there, and we've thrown some names around out there, and I don't know who he's going to go after for sure. We've talked about McCulloch and Larson and Yandel, all from Arizona. We've talked about a few others as well from other teams. It's going to be interesting to see, but I think that's the last thing we really need, Eddie. If we stay healthy, Gibson, Anderson, I think we'll go pretty far. We pick up a shutdown D-man. I think it'll be probably us in Nashville fighting it out in the Western Conference Finals if both teams stay healthy and make it past the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, and like you said, I think we definitely need to pick up that defenseman. That guy can be a shutdown guy. Put him on the penalty kill. Put him in tough situations, and be able to get the puck out. He'll never be out of position. One of those solid guys. And it's hard to find those guys, and I think there's a couple that are available that will do the job better than Stoner and Brewer and Manson. To be fair, it'd be nice to have a guy who's NHL ready 100% and been in the NHL for a couple seasons. So I think, like I've said in the podcast before and on Twitter, I think McCulloch is is the guy that we should go for. There's other guys out there like Sekera as well, and a lot of guys who've been already pulled off the board, and Myers and Friends, and well, a lot more names will be probably come available by the time the deadline rolls around on March 2nd. But I'm sure Murray's probably got something in the works. He's definitely not done. Defense is the main thing, but they're not going to overpay for it. They've got guys who can play the spot. Obviously, we haven't liked how Brewer and Stoner have played, but you don't want to overpay for one of these guys, especially if they're rental. So, we want to see a guy come in, but we also don't want to overpay.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. I mean, if we don't make a move, then it's probably going to be an overpayment type of thing. I know that there's been some people out there asking Murray. There were some comments on Twitter today about going to, for Theodore and Richie, but for rental type things. And Murray's already said he's not entertaining any of those types of things. It's got to be something solid. I don't think, like you said, he's going to go for a rental thing. He's looking more long term. And speaking of long term, the Ducks are going to have their AHL team just down the way here in San Diego, which I'm happy about because it's about an hour, 30-minute drive, give or take traffic, which is going to help the Ducks. We're going to have the prospects out here. We're going to get to see more of them. They had the big event this last Sunday. I tried to go, but I had too many other things going on. But it was a good event, Eddie, and I think it's good for the Ducks in terms of player movement. And, with all the other AHL teams coming out, it's good for hockey for the state of California.
Yeah, I know. I've seen the logo reveal, and I heard the owners talk about how for the last 10 years they've been really trying to bring the AHL franchise to California and have it closer to the Ducks, and have it more represent the Ducks with the colors and the orange and black, and just being able to bring if, like we said before, having the ease of calling up younger players for home games, and they don't have to go as far across the country from Norfolk, and it's just easier, and it like you said, it grows the sport of hockey in California, putting more Ducks fans across California, not just in Orange County, but maybe in San Diego and in other places as well. So it's definitely a good step forward for the Ducks, and a big step forward for hockey in California.
Yeah, and if you're listening and you want to write about the goals, we're taking more writers. We've got 4 more that have joined us, and I've got a couple more inquiries because we're going to be covering the goals as well going forward. So if you're interested in that, you can always email us at DucksNPucks@usa.com, and we'll get more info on that to you. And the writers that did go, they basically told me, Eddie, they went at 8, 9 in the morning and waited out there for 2-3 hours, and there was over 8,000 fans that went. So I mean, that's just a remarkable number, and great to see the turnout down there.
Yeah, being able to bring that many people, and having hockey back in San Diego, and there's from what I've seen on Twitter is there's a lot of Kings fans up there, and probably a lot of Sharks fans, and to bring more Ducks fans hopefully up there will be nice, and even if not, just to have everybody to be able to watch hockey in San Diego, and root for a team that has a lot of history down there is going to be good for the fans up there, and really good for the AHL and the NHL in general.
Yeah, and if we didn't mention already, the name is the San Diego Gulls. We did put that out, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So they did keep the name. They changed the logo a little bit, not too much. A little bit of tinkering with the colors and stuff. We'll have to see how the jerseys look. But it's going to be good. We're going to have some people covering it. I'm going to make my way down there for some of the games for sure next season. And the last couple things here for you is just make sure you follow the podcast and our email list. We're going to be doing a little contest in the month of March coming up here. We've got some tickets for the Oilers game and the Stars game in April. And also we've got some shirts that have been still going out there, new ones that we've been putting out, still taking some more ideas in. We may make some more new ones before the season ends. Got 2 coupons going right now. Silverberg got that game winner in the shootout last night. So if you want to go over to dnphockey.com and put in Silver Bullet, as the checkout code. You'll get 20% off on that shirt. And, with Teemu becoming basically the rally Teemu, is we were kind of talking about last night, and people were excited to see, we still have a handful of the hero shirts left. If you want 20% off for that, you can put in rally Teemu for the code for that shirt as well. And, if anybody has ideas for shirts and whatnot, you can always email me, hit up Eddie too. There's been a handful of people that have come up with ideas, and, we're always welcome to try to make more gear out there for, the fans. So just stay tuned for that. Follow the blog and the podcast. We'll be back most likely our regular day next Sunday. And let's go Ducks, and let's just keep this win streak rolling, and we'll see you in a week.
The Anaheim Ducks are the Stanley Cup champions.